Swan Lake is a great classic, and as a dancer, I've lived and breathed it since I was 16. It has a magic that's enchanted audiences for generations.
It's about an unattainable love, something that's almost impossible to have.
It's very thunderous, isn't it? You could say he's a great dramatist.
Swan Lake is a golden marriage between dance, choreography, and music.
Okay?
For me and for every new ballerina, learning the steps of Swan Lake is like a journey through time, reaching back generations to relive the magic that was created over 100 years ago. This is the story of the most popular ballet ever.
The heart of Swan Lake is that moonlit, flooded world where Siegfried and Odette first encounter each other. And you do feel this extraordinary transition from the real solid world into this kind of strange place where everything's possible, where everything's shadowy, and where these beautiful women have been transformed. And you know that Prince Siegfried is never going to be the same again.
The magic is a huge element. This evil magician who can turn himself into, he's a trickster, he can turn himself into an owl, he can be anything. And he can turn you into a swan if you're not careful. And after all, poor Odette is condemned to be a swan forever unless she finds someone who can love her.
Swan Lake was born in Russia, and it was here in St. Petersburg at the Mariinsky Theatre that it became a big success. Over a century later, the company formerly known as the Kirov is rehearsing their classic production, which has been specially recorded for the BBC. The conductor is Valery Gergiev. The world-famous maestro is no stranger to Tchaikovsky, but this is his first ever Swan Lake.
The secret of conducting Tchaikovsky, especially the most popular Tchaikovsky, is your ability to shape the phrase. All the naivety, all the dreamy poetry, all the danger, all the evil character, but all of it.
For the dancers here and for the Prima-ballerina, Uliana Lepakina, dancing Swan Lake is a rite of passage. The ballet is considered the ultimate test for becoming a ballerina.
When
I was studying at the ballet school, I never imagined that I would dance in Swan Lake. I didn't dare imagine it. I wasn't so bold as to think that I would ever be capable of dancing Swan Lake on the stage of the Mariinsky.
over the world, dancers aspire to learn Swan Lake. And in Richmond, London, the next generation is already in training. The Royal Ballet School is where I first learnt to dance Swan Lake. The girls wanted me to show them Odette's first steps.
And boom. Now you're going to do a rond-jambe, swish, rond-jambe, out, and down, swish, up.
So much of Swan Lake is about perfecting the choreography.
You go down, and I look just there, because if you look any higher, you'll throw yourself back, and you want to get over the leg. So you rond-jambe, releve, and down. As a ballet as a whole, would you dream of doing this ballet yourself? Is it the story or?
The music.
The music,
Yes.
You love the music. You're right.
Sounds like what you're actually dancing.
Exactly, that's exactly how I feel. You could listen to music and it could actually tell you what the steps are. It sort of also tells the story at the same time, doesn't it? Swan Lake is a tragic story of a young prince who falls in love with a swan, or rather a princess, called Odette, who has been turned into a swan by the evil magician, von Rothbart.
It starts in a beautiful castle in Germany where a young prince, a very handsome young prince, is just turning 21 years old.
His mother gives him a crossbow for his birthday. So he goes hunting in the forests.
And there's a lovely lake. And it's sort of midnight-ish, I think.
He encounters this extraordinary magical flock of swans, and at their head is this extraordinarily beautiful woman.
Odette tells the prince that she's under a terrible spell.
In order for the spell to be broken, he has to declare his undying love for Odette.
In the mime version, she tells him that... I've got to remember the mime now.
In the versions of Swan Lake I have danced with the Royal Ballet, we use mime in the scene where Odette first meets the prince to explain the spell she's under. Here the Italian star Roberto Bolle is playing the prince.
And of course, at the beginning of the mime, it's very important that she is very scared of him. So she's letting out a lot of her feelings by telling him her story.
Tell me more.
I'll show you that over there is a lake of my mother's tears. But over there is one who is evil that made me a swan. But if one loves, marries, and swears, then I will be a swan no more.
You want to get a little bit more urgent.
My coach, Donald McCleary, danced the prince in Swan Lake many times in the 1960s with the Prima-ballerina Margot Fonteyn.
Do you remember when Margot did it? She said, once you start talking, you can't stop.
Yes, exactly.
You know, once she gets the confidence and she knows that he's not going to shoot her,
Yes.
she starts telling him everything, her whole life.
When I first danced Odette, I was lucky enough to be coached by Margot Fonteyn. Here she is dancing in 1954.
But you don't swear you're going to love her now. He
Yeah.
should really say, I love you.
I love you straight away.
And
Yes.
But,
But
when
then the
you're
ballet
doing-
would be rather short.
The ballet would be over.
Yes, it would be rather short.
The next evening, the queen prepares her wonderful ball.
The Queen is trying to marry him off to lots of princesses, people he should marry, but he's saying, no, I want to marry for love.
Von Rothbart appears with Odile, who is the spitting image of this half-swan, half-woman that he has seen the night before.
Odile tricks the prince to fall in love with her and declare his undying love for her, so Odette will remain a swan forever.
And the whole thing that follows is this mixture of incredible romanticism, but also of impending doom.
Swan Lake for me is the music. The score is just beautiful.
It's full of such famous tunes, it's hard to believe that the musical world was shocked when Tchaikovsky agreed to compose for the ballet.
I think that the magic of that score will never disappear because it is one of the great ballet scores. I mean, I think Tchaikovsky is the ultimate ballet composer.
It's stirring. It takes you away.
What it is it just the beauty of the melody? Maybe yes. Is it just the symphonic strength that it just comes all together? That you not only hear melody, then wait until the next time. Oh, that's the second one I know. And so, it just also is so wonderfully put together.
It may have surprised quite a lot of people that he accepted the commission. On the whole, ballet music was still written by hack composers, and it was still kind of written by the yard to suit.
But Tchaikovsky loved ballet and was delighted when the Bolshoi Theatre in Moscow asked him to compose music for the new production. It was a chance to live out his romantic imagination and an escape from his own depressive state of mind, telling magical stories through music.
The ballets were written to tell a story, and there's very little music around from that time that was written to tell a story. Tchaikovsky created music that was very dramatic and very full of feeling, imagery. Even though different choreographers and people who approach it will hear it in a different way, it's in there somewhere.
When it was first performed in 1877, the audience had heard nothing like it. His symphonic music developed and repeated a number of themes and set new standards for ballet composers to follow. One of the most haunting tunes may also reveal something of his state of mind. Someone who has played it hundreds of times and has his own interesting theories is my rehearsal pianist, Paul Stobart.
Tchaikovsky begins the main theme with the oboe, which for me sets a very rustic scene. This is the oboe. Then the music takes on a different quality, a very searching quality, almost as if Tchaikovsky is not able to find within himself what he's really looking for. For something that's almost unobtainable, perhaps. Never going to find it.
How many times you get? F sharp. How many times we do it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Using the same motif, you find enough contrast in presenting it first time, then second time, then fourth time, then 10th time. And that's how I took my own role in the Swan Lake, just to make these motifs which sound really familiar, but they should sound maybe sometimes a little bit different than they sounded all these years, but also to keep a true nature of the music.
So if we come over here a bit, so you don't go, if we the go Signets part in Act 2 is so famous basically because the music, it's such a wonderful tune.
Isn't it all like that? I think if you asked anybody about Swan Lake, this is the thing they probably would remember. I know as a girl myself, you always practice the moves, and so they're going to try a couple of steps. And so it's that move where you go dun 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 dun. Do you know the signets? It's so unusual to have 4 dancers kind of linked together, and that they don't become unlinked until the last beat of the music.
It's very, very important to start this at exactly the right tempo. Too fast and the dancers are not able to get into the positions.
If it has to be so perfect so that it doesn't look funny, because if a girl does a head wrong or something, then the audience spot it straight away.
This is the bassoons. This is woodwind.
And you see why it's so difficult, isn't it?
It's done in a very, very beautiful way. It's very elegant.
Now look down when you do the tombe. Down. Right. Perfect. And you know what bit comes next? It's and chafe, chafe. That's it. See? These girls know it. It's amazing.
The origins of Swan Lake are shrouded in mystery. There are many theories as to where the story came from, and some people think Tchaikovsky himself put the story together.
Tchaikovsky wrote the first version of Swan Lake for his nieces and nephews when they were little children one summer when he was visiting them. I think it was about 1870. And apparently they had little wooden swans that they rode on in the house, and perhaps that's what inspired him.
In some ways, Swan Lake is rooted in the romantic ballet of the first half of the 19th century, where the stages were full of stories about heroes like Siegfried. The actual story of swans, however, that's got a much stranger and wider history.
Swans are a symbol of innocence and purity, and Tchaikovsky may have come across fairy tales about them during his travels around Europe.
Northern mythology is full of stories about swans. So although Swan Lake was not a single fairy tale, it did draw on lots of familiar tales, lots of familiar sources.
Вы знаете, Лебединое озеро.
Swan Lake's an amazing story because it's a fairy tale for grown-ups. Since children are prepared for adult life through fairy tales, I think that any fairy tale for grown-ups is very instructive, and children understand it. It's clear what's good and what's evil.
Children love magic. And I have to say, as an adult, I love magic too, and I'm a great fan of Harry Potter and Narnia and books like that. And I think that Swan Lake does share some of these elements because there is this tremendous force of evil in the background that's ready to pounce at any moment.
The theme of good and evil is portrayed in the story by the 2 swans, who are danced by the same ballerina. For the audience, their different characters are revealed through the clever choreography. Marius Petterbar choreographed the palace scenes, and Lev Ivanov did the lakeside scenes.
I don't think they realized how clever they were being in showing the contrasts between how Odette and Odile have these different characters and how they're trying to catch this one prince. Swan Lake is one of the most challenging ballets in our classical repertoire. It has every step we do in class. Everything we work for is in this ballet. The jumps, the beats, the turns. I don't think there's anything actually missing from this piece. And you have to do 4 acts of it as well, 3 hours long. It's very demanding.
For the ballerina in particular, it is the most challenging role, Odette Odile, because she does have to dance in 2 completely different styles.
Odil's style is flashy and seductive, and Odette's is lyrical and romantic. This is one beautiful part in the Act 2 pas de deux, where Odette's getting more familiar with the prince, but she's still very nervous. Even though she has the mannerisms of being a swan in this pas de deux, she is all woman, but constantly she's worrying about Rothbart going to appear any time. What makes this part quite difficult is that basically the back and the leg have to reach the same position at the same time in the music. So as I'm bending back and as the foot goes down, they have to reach together, and that's what I'm trying to perfect. And then, of course, what's very difficult for the guy, because he's only got me in one arm, that he's going to bring me up just like that with one arm. And he has to do it very controlled, only in one arm, and just catch it at the end, which is not easy. We try and make it look very easy, but it's not easy. In contrast, Odil's style is flamboyant and athletic. So much of Tchaikovsky's music does wonderful things for a dancer because it does encourage you to move faster, it propels you and moves you into those moves. In Odil's solo, the very last step is very sharp and clean and is a wonderful impact to the end of the solo. And you can see why it's so difficult, because she has to do that after everything else. And the nice thing is to keep it really fast. The difficult thing when you're tired, to be fast is always harder. The Cordeballet is the body of the company, a group of dancers all dancing in sync together. It can be very beautiful.
I think if you see a still shot of Swan Lake and you just see this line of women in white tutus, all in arabesque or with their arms posed in exactly identical positions, you could think, oh, it's just a kind of Busby Berkeley on point. But actually, there is an extraordinarily expressive quality in the way the choreography is organised.
These ballerinas at the Mariinsky are the latest in a long line of dancers whose knowledge and skills have been passed down through the years. It's as if the ballet is in their blood. The standard expected of them is extremely high, and they practice tirelessly to perfect every detail under the watchful eye of strict disciplinarian Makar Vassiev, the Mariinsky's director of ballet.
In this type of ballet, the women's classical Cordeballet is the biggest star in this theatre. We treat it attentively. It has to be a single ensemble. In this theatre, tradition is the most important thing, because this is a living process. When you think that it's passed on from one pair of legs to another, from hand to hand, from heart to heart, you could say that from the very first performance, Swan Lake has effectively never left our stage. All the teachers have passed through the school, and if we were to lose these traditions, the quality would change, and the ballet itself would change. All the dancers have different abilities and talents, but we have to unify them. How is it done? I don't know. It's probably done with one thing. Work, work, daily work.
On the stage, not only does the Cordeballet surround and protect Odette, in the palace scenes, it provides a contrast to the dark drama by entertaining displays of lively dancers. Towards the end of the ballet, no one has to work harder than the Prima-ballerina. At a point where she's already exhausted, she faces the most physically challenging moment, known as the 32 fouettes.
The 32 fouettes wasn't in the original choreography. It was actually introduced as a party piece by a dancer called Legnani. She was probably one of the only girls that could actually do these 32 fouettes, and it was probably 32 because that's probably as many as she could do. They always used to say, you're on a penny, basically, and you shouldn't move off that penny when you're doing the fouettes. It's a wonderful piece of music as well, because it's incredibly uplifting and very exciting, and there's something about it that just drives you on and on and on and on. In a way, it's like you're burning a hole in the stage, because you should be just on one spot.
Even now, 21st century ballerinas find those fouettes incredibly challenging. They come at the end of this very long pas de deux, so already their legs are feeling like jelly. Already they're desperate for air.
Obviously, it gets more difficult the faster you become, because the dizzier you become as you're turning quicker and quicker. And if you want to be able to fit in that double at the end to secure that ending, which makes it more impressive, it's very difficult.
Some ballerinas don't even do it. Sometimes they'll just do a tour of spins around the stage or something to get out of it, because it is one of those rather bloody hurdles that, you know, makes the whole theatre tense, basically, until they're over.
It's so fast.
As a dancer, Swan Lake is the ultimate classical ballet to perform, and you feel every emotion as you dance. I think that's what the audience takes away with them, a feeling of living the fairy tale.
Why I like Swan Lake? First of all, it's a love story. And love is forever. We can't live without love. That's why I like Swan Lake.
Well, I'd love to dance that role. It'd be wonderful.
There's just so much magic and mystery in it.
I think for me, it's that dream as a child of always wanting to do it. And when you get that opportunity, you're kind of taken back and shocked that you're actually doing all those moves.